Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Today, I am going to be presenting my organizational behavior final project presentation. This is the project for the literature review process and also looking at the literature addressing job satisfaction for culinary professionals working in the food service field. My name is Robert Ramsey, and I will be focusing on this topic because my background is really in the food service industry, both as a chef and food service manager in the restaurant, hotel, and catering industries. And I've noticed that job satisfaction is a challenge within those fields. And so I chose to address that in this course. So let's take a look. For today's presentation, we will be looking at two major sections. The first is the literature review process. So this is just understanding the sort of progression and the journey that I went through in improving my literature review skills and understanding what a literature review should really look like. And also then looking at the literature itself. So what was explored in this specific course. Okay, and we'll look at two major literature topics. The first is the initial topic that I focused on, which is ethical management in food service. And then the second is the primary topic that I focused on for the bulk of the course, which is job satisfaction among culinary workers in food service environments. And then finally, we'll look at how that can be applied professionally moving forward. So coming into the course, I did struggle a little bit with literature review, and actually, in the previous course, the literature review grade for that assignment was the worst grade that I've gotten yet since being in actually any kind of level of grad school. And really, a lot of this stemmed from just me being pretty unclear about the major differences between an annotated bibliography and a literature review. To a lesser degree, I did also find APA 7 challenging and a little bit intimidating. And then finally, I had some outside factors that were sort of contributing to some scheduling challenges that kind of limited my availability to focus as much as I should have on the literature review at that time. Luckily, that hasn't been such an issue this semester or this term. And so that has actually helped me be able to make this transition and make these improvements because I've been able to focus on it a little more. So coming into the course, I was a little bit intimidated by the process, again, because it wasn't my strength. And I was also eager to improve, though. And so looking forward to developing the skills. So, what did the journey look like for me? So, initially, the biggest mistake that I was making coming in from the last course and even just starting out with my first drafts was that I was dividing the literature by the individual article that it came from, meaning that maybe I would write a paragraph or two talking about all of the key arguments and the key points that one specific article was making before moving to the next article, and then just kind of regurgitating everything that was in that article, paraphrasing and presenting those arguments. Now, I also made some APA formatting errors, and that's something that I'm still addressing and improving on, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the world's best editor. Um, but that was a bit of a challenge, and that's something that's getting better with time, and I think really takes just a time investment and a willingness to kind of work through it and improve. I found the process of remembering to cite every statement that you make with some type of backing from a reliable source to be a little bit challenging. And the tactic that I found to be really helpful with that is looking for opinions. So when you go to do that review process, reading through, and anytime you find a statement that is asserting something, if there's nothing backing it up, it's time to find that citation. And what I found for my own work was that I might have already had that information in an article, and had read it, and that's why I had put it into the literature review, but then failed to like make that actual citation. So that's something I'm still working on, as well as remembering that every single statement that you make really does need to be backed up. And then to a slightly lesser degree, finding relevant articles. And it's not so much the finding, it is the narrowing down. So I'm finding that I'm getting a lot of articles from really broad sort of topics that are major organizational behavior topics that relate all the way down to sort of granular information about a specific sector in the food service industry, and trying to figure out what it is that I should be drawing from, or and how to eliminate things that I don't necessarily need for this particular assignment. So the biggest thing that I think I improved on in the course is really integrating multiple sources to provide support for a single topic. I'm still struggling with it. I'm still not the best at it, but I've certainly improved a lot. And so I think that has really been helpful to making my literature reviews a lot stronger. I'm working towards tidying up the APA format. I have made some improvements there. I found that even after I edited and reviewed it, I still had a couple mistakes on the revision when I turned that in. So still room for improvement there. Um, I did find that I really valued the draft and revision process and loved using track changes. Being able to see how something was and then how it looked once I had made those changes was super, super helpful, and something that I will continue doing. And then I also gained a lot of insights just from reading what my classmates had to say, their feedback, and also participating in the online meetings, because hearing things from others that they're struggling with really helped me fix problems that I might have had. So here I just sort of put a timeline of the progression, with all the things that we just discussed, the issues that I had coming into the course, those improvements that I was able to make throughout the course, and sort of ending up where we are now, which is that I've made improvements and progress on formatting. And again, I think that just takes practice, 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 and time investment. Um, Stacking multiple sources to prove the same point, I think that's something that I definitely understand the concept of now, and it's just about remembering to integrate that regularly. And then the big one that I still need to improve is finding a way to efficiently figure out what literature is useful for the topic at hand, and how to kind of wade through all of this massive amount of literature in an efficient way. So speaking of the literature, um, let's focus on what I actually did in the literature review. So initially, I started with looking at ethical management practices, and then I sort of shifted towards job satisfaction. And I like to think of these two things as really related, but the ethical management side is sort of how do we improve job satisfaction for our employees? And the job satisfaction side is how do the employees themselves perceive what's happening around them, and how does that impact how they feel about the work that they do? Um, the food service industry has an established problem of workplace conditions that are really, really challenging. And so I did some work looking at what sort of management practices can address those types of things. So I looked at the organizational outcomes that ethical leadership in food service can do to mitigate exhaustion and trust issues among employees. I looked at the effects of ethical management on overall performance of the firm itself. So how can being an ethical manager to your employees actually get better performance for the organization? The impact of values and job satisfaction and life satisfaction on how chefs' well-being and their longevity in the industry. Corporate responsibility for food service companies. What do they need to tell their employees and their customers? What do they have a responsibility to tell their employees and their customers? And current industry problems in food service. There are some unethical culture, unethical practices that are ingrained in the culture of the industry. So when I moved into job satisfaction, what I then looked at are sort of three categories, sort of a baseline for where job satisfaction is now, then the issues that are sort of contributing to that job satisfaction, and then what types of things we might be able to do to improve that job satisfaction. So the baseline: high turnover, labor shortages, negative work experiences, high rates of mental health and physical health issues, emotional exhaustion and burnout. All of these things are very common in food service. We also found that by improving job satisfaction and reducing turnover, that organizations can benefit by mitigating some of these labor challenges and costs that they incur. So, some of the issues that the literature addressed are in management and development, meaning that we're investing in employees by improving pay and benefits, improving training, improving the nature of the work that they do, and also a really big one looking at workplace conditions. How can we make the culture less abusive, the risks of physical injury, as well as mental challenges and impairments, all of those things, how can we reduce those types of risks? And also some of the things that have been identified as improving job satisfaction among people who currently work in the industry. So one of those things that's really big is that in the culinary field, the job tends to attract those that have a calling to it because of the creative aspect. So some of the literature finds that the passion for the work is really essential because of the challenges, meaning that if you're not passionate about it, that those challenges can kind of outweigh the benefits of the job. Also found that by creating an environment where creativity, autonomy, and meaningfulness are added to the job, that the employees will have higher engagement and thus higher job satisfaction. And that when the employee and the organization share the same values, there's improvements to job satisfaction. There are additional motivators, of course. Wages and benefits are really important, and some of the literature notes that that job satisfaction is not necessarily the best indicator of motivator here, because sometimes people will leave for better wages and benefits, even if they're satisfied with the job that they had, because they simply just need to make more money. And so work engagement tends to be a better indicator. Are people engaged with the job that they're doing? And they also found that training and growth potential are really good ways to improve job satisfaction in the industry. So finally, to wrap up, for professional application, this is really a topic that I want to focus on in the long term. And so just starting by building this database and starting to explore the research has been really helpful in that regard. The focus on improving workplace and conditions in professional kitchens is something that I'm passionate about. And I think that through doing this, not only am I gaining knowledge base in the research topics, but I'm also just sort of continuing to build skills in literature review, which are obviously essential to be able to succeed in the process. And then in the long term, I'd like to have an impact on, changing the work culture in the food service world to benefit employee workers. So with that, it's onward and upward to the next challenge in the program. I really look forward to continuing work with all of you. Thanks for watching.